Hi, everybody. Hi. Welcome today. I'm Rachel Chamness at Soundwave Seal. And today I wanted to talk about Beyond the Veil, what really happens when you die. First of all, why am I talking about it and why should you believe me since I am alive? So that is because I am a medium. I'm a trance channel medium and I'm a master teacher, Reiki practitioner. But of course, I teach all levels of healing, trance channeling. So I have been teaching for several years and I've been working for in this business for many years, since about 2017, 2018. And I have talked to friends who have passed or other humans beyond the veil. I've spoken with them for clients who want to talk to someone who has passed or needs some information. And I regularly work with beings of the light, like angels. And of course, you've probably met Alpar, who I trance channel. He's a blue avian being. I trance channel all types of beings of the light, and they tell me a lot of things. So I'm never going to call myself an expert in all of that because I'm learning just like you are. But I do have lots of experience talking to beings about this subject. And what I thought was I would bring some in to also answer questions. And at the end, I'm definitely bringing a healing and a trance channel message from Archangel Ariel, who is another one of my partner guides. So I don't know how long you've been following me, but many years ago, I had another podcast and it was called Ascension in 5D Chats. And I was chatting with my friend Michelle, who has since passed on, actually. And this is what we talked about. We talked about what's beyond the veil. And she was a medium for many years professionally, many, many years. And she also had seen the same things that I did, which was really cool. And I am definitely going to put some highlights of that show in with this one at the end when I turn this into a podcast so that you can watch it, because it was just a really interesting conversation many years ago. So she's actually here and she will answer questions as well. And so I just wanted to see what kind of questions you have about what happens when you die and tell you the things that I've seen when I talk to those who have passed, what I've seen when I ask these sort of questions and things like that. So this morning, I was eating breakfast with my husband and I said, today I'm talking about what really happens when you die. And he goes, ooh, heavy. And I thought, what's not heavy? Is it? And then I realized I have this different perspective because as a medium, I have the perspective of it's not heavy because I understand what's happening. I understand that there's more to life beyond this human life, that we are huge souls. And this is just an exercise in learning and growing. And what would we do if we didn't know all the things that we know about the universe and about our helpers and our guides and love and light and everything? What if we didn't know all that and we just came into this reality where we are just in a 3D body and we have to figure it all out? Like, what would we do? Right? I think that's pretty much what we're doing here. We're figuring that out. And so we don't have all of these memories from our higher soul, higher self, soul, however you want to call it. And there's a few levels of that, if you know that. And so here we are just kind of bumbling along. And I feel like that's the human question or condition. Like, what can we find when there's no proof? There's faith, and faith extends past, of course, spiritual and metaphysical into religion, into other things. But just having faith that everything's going to be okay, that you're not alone. I think coming into spirituality in any way, even if it's in another way, going into religion maybe, but any way that you come into this knowing that you're not alone, that there are others there to help you, and that your path is just this small little time here on earth, and your real self, your real eternal soul is there. And so when we die, we don't just puff out of existence. And honestly, this is the thing that got me the most interested in spirituality. When I was about 21, I think I was watching Oprah, and this woman came on and she talked about how she died, and she went to the beyond, and then she came back and she wrote a book about it. I don't remember the name of the book. It was pretty famous in the early 90s. So maybe if anyone out there is as old as I am and you remember that book. And that's really what started everything, because that really fascinated me. Now, as a kid, I did see ghosts, and I did see all kinds of things and had interesting experiences, astral travel, things like that. But I was sort of, as you all were, gaslighted into believing it was just my imagination. I turned it all off, right? Also, I was just the weirdest kid. I thought that, being weird was too hard as a teenager. And so I just turned all that off and had a more normal experience for a while, until I came back into all this and realized that all of this was there, reopened it for myself as I opened it for clients. And of course now, I have, my clairs are really open, but back in my early 20s, I was just, hey, what is all this? So, okay. So the first thing to know is that when you do die, when your soul leaves your human body, there is a light, right? That's what people say, go to the light. I don't know if it's exactly like that. I think this is what we hear. And of course, I'm not speaking from experience. I'm speaking from what these beings who have passed on tell me. So they're telling me right now, yes, there is a light. It is a portal. It looks like a portal. And for some people, they go straight into it. A lot of people I notice when they pass, and I used to sing at a lot of funerals. So I would usually talk to the being, the human. I would usually talk to the human who passed on. They would be talking to me sometimes during the funeral as I was waiting to sing. And so I learned a lot from that too. And they usually sort of hang out past their funeral and then go. And that's if there's a peaceful passing. Sometimes when people die unexpectedly, if they are murdered or something unexpected happens, like a really fast heart attack or something, then they might be confused. So I have talked to friends who passed away, or other people who asked me to look in on someone who passed away. And sometimes they are confused. They don't know that they're dead. And that's kind of where you're stuck, where you don't go to the light. So if something just really jarring happens and you don't know what's happened, then sometimes you don't know that you're dead, and you're really confused. So here's what I find with earthbound spirits. So people who don't go to the light, sometimes they figure it out right about their funeral. They see their funeral, they figure out that they're dead, and then they go to the light, and that's fine. Sometimes they never go to the light, and there's a whole gamut of this. If they never go to the light, or they haven't yet, that's an earthbound spirit. So in my psychic Reiki healing master teacher level, I do teach how to get these souls to go to the light, whether they want to or not. Sometimes they are a nuisance, right? And sometimes people stay behind because they have an addiction. And this addiction could be something as simple as addicted to drugs or alcohol or gambling, or it could be an addiction to emotions, heavy emotions, to martyrdom, things like that. Like they don't want to release these heavy feelings that's become a part of them, and they don't want to release that. And so they don't go to the light because they know that when they do, that they will lose all this. And then these are the kind of spirits that become a sort of nuisance. And in my course, I teach you how to cross them over, even if they don't want to. But in most experiences that I have, when someone just dies and they're surprised and they don't go to the light, or it's not a case where they see the light, but they're just waiting till after their funeral to go, then sometimes I have to tell people that they have passed away. So there was a case of this young woman who was murdered, and she was about 19, and she didn't know what was happening. I had to explain it to her, because also they're outside of time. So when you speak to these beings, I shouldn't say beings, when you speak to these humans who have passed and they're still hanging around, they're not in the now every second. They could have big spaces of time where they're not there. And so to them, it could feel like, let's say they died in 1930. It could feel like it's just been a few months since then. They might be around for a few minutes, and then the next thing they know, it's years later, right? There's no time, and they're sort of disjointed. They don't know what they're doing. And the feeling that I get from them, and I see some of the things they see, and I get a lot of information about what they're experiencing. So that's where I'm talking from this experience. And it's like it's disjointed. They're sort of hanging around. It's like 1 minute's this, 1 minute's that. It's like, it's almost like you're so out of it. And then the next minute you think, oh, I'm here. And then they're here again, but it's been 10 years. You know, it's someone new in this house that they're haunting, right? So that's a earthbound spirit. More information on that. But usually if you find someone like that young woman, I let her know that she had passed, that she had been murdered. And of course, at first she was upset, and then she quickly came around to it. She went to visit her family, went to the funeral, watched that sort of closure that they were all getting from her death, and then she passed on. And then another friend of mine who had a heart attack, he was very surprised. And also there were a lot of rumors about how he died, which weren't true. And so he was very confused. So he was hearing these like rumors. He sort of knew he was dead, but he thought something else had happened. He couldn't remember. And I had to be like, hey, look, I think those aren't true. I don't think that's really what happened. You need to think about what happened. And that is what happened, not what you're hearing people say. And then he was very upset because his children were young. And I said, hey, you can go talk to your children. They're young enough. They'll hear you. And he was like, okay. And then he was fine. He was totally fine. It's like he just sort of came to himself. And I saw him go talk to his children. I know he went to his funeral, and then he crossed over. And I talk to him sometimes as well. So yes, it can be really confusing for them. It really can. Yeah. In April, I love that you used to do that during funerals too. Yeah, it's interesting because when you talk to these people who have passed on, if it's someone who is elderly and they're watching their funeral, they expected to die, they sometimes are funny because they kind of give you these little comments about people talking, and it's kind of interesting. So yes, if you have questions, I see Glow, you have a question, put them in the comments. I'm gonna get to them. So that's kind of like the preface of at first when you die. Then, and I have my friend here, she's telling me what happens next so that we're sure. That we're sure, not just talking from a medium perspective. She, like I said before, she was a medium in life, and she's telling me now what happened next. So after the funeral, then she saying that she went to the light, and then she went to what you're kind of calling, and I can't remember the exact name. I think that's on purpose, but life review is what people call it. Yes. So she's saying there's a life review, and she's showing me like a film, like going past, like almost like you could do on a YouTube video. You could go forward or backward, or you could go really quick and you see the images going really fast. And she's saying, you can spend as much time here as you want, which I've heard before. You could spend a really long time, like really going, depending on your personality or what you wanted to get out of this life. You could go through a lot of situations, how you acted, what you didn't know at that time, like that there were guides around you helping you, or that it was connected to this other thing, or it was supposed to happen, or something like that. You can go through each moment in this life review and really go through it and get a lot of learning from each little part. Or you don't have to. So I have another friend here, and he's saying, or if he's saying, if you just thought that the whole earth experience was beyond harder than you thought it would be, and it was just too much, you don't have to do too much of it. So he's telling me that his life review, he just did a little bit. He said, I hit the main points and then I went on. But he says that it doesn't mean that he can't go back and finish and do a deeper life review. He does not plan to come back as a human again. He says he's never doing that experience again, and he's just so glad he's out of it. But you can sort of keep that. He's kind of showing me like putting a DVD on the shelf. It's like you can just keep that and you can come back to it later. So if he goes through another life experience, he's saying definitely not human, but like a different life experience. He's showing me maybe possibly going to the Lyra constellation and being a humanoid on the Lyra constellation. He is considering that. He's saying if he does that, And at the end of that life, he's feeling better about that life. Then he might take that in comparison to his human life and look at them both and see what he learned about that. So with the life review, it's kind of what you want to make out of it. You don't have to do it all at once, but you can. My other friend, Michelle, she's saying that, some people really do this for a long, long, long time. They want to just glean as much information as they can about it. And I don't know if Joanne's on the call. If she is, thank you, Joanne, for becoming a member. I just started a YouTube membership and she just joined, or I'll put that banner up. And thank you. And I want to just say that Joanne, they're showing me your dad. I've spoken to your dad before for sessions and spirit circles and things like that. And they're showing me that your dad did a really long life review. And so that's a really good example of someone who did a long life review. And then they're showing me my dad and how he did some learning after that. So after the life review, you have many, many choices. I don't know all of them, but some things I do know is that you can go get prepared for another life, just speak with your spirit guides again, like, what do I want to learn next? And maybe, like my friend Kyle is saying, you might go to another constellation or do a different kind of life that's not a human life, or something like that. Or, Michelle saying you could go to a school and learn things. Like my dad did some sort of schooling. I don't really understand it, of course, because here I am talking to you. I'm human. I'm alive. So I'm just kind of telling you what they're telling me. But I've seen that where people went to some schooling, learned some more, did different kinds of schooling. I would think that being in a human body is definitely a type of schooling, but there's other experiences that we don't understand as humans. Okay, I see Heather just joined. Thank you, Heather, so much for joining. I'm really excited to have you. Yeah, there's all different kinds of places you can go. So if you're just joining, I'm just going to recap. You can come in. As soon as you die, you can then decide if you're going to stay for your funeral and then go to the light. And we're talking about people who are going to the light and what happens on the other side. I already covered what happens if you don't go to the light. You just kind of hang out here, and it becomes like a problem that people and healers like me have to clear these people, send them over. But for most people. And then they can go to school, they can learn more after their life review. A lot of people come back again. Now there's this huge question about karma. People are always asking about karma. And what I keep getting from my guides is that this whole karmic wheel coming back to earth over and over, I did this to you, now you have to do it to me, and all that is not really applicable anymore. It's not really a thing anymore. And so you don't have to come back. It is your choice. But at this point, because of ascension, people aren't coming back as humans. That's kind of closed. And I don't understand how it works after ascension, but it's a little bit different. People are still being born, but if you are here now in ascension, you sort of have won the lottery. Like you're here during the craziest time on earth, and you got this spot. You don't get it twice. Do you know what I mean? So if you pass on, then someone who's been waiting will come in instead. So let's see what your questions are, and I'll see what else I want to say. But for mediums, like I was saying before, it's not a heavy topic because we understand that this is just a blip. And so we have less fear of death. All right, we have a few questions. Let's see. Glow had one. She says, I love this topic. Thank you. Many questions. Cremation versus burial. Do spirits have an opinion about it? Okay, we'll start with that question. You have lots of questions. Okay. They're saying it literally does not matter, because once the spirit leaves the body, it doesn't matter at all what you're going to do with their remains, and that they may have had an opinion during life, but during death, they have no opinion at all. It does not matter. Whatever brings closure or makes the ones you leave behind feel better about is fine with them. And this is my friend Michelle. Like I said, we have discussed this topic before at length when she was alive, and she's giving me a lot of information. She's saying after you die, you really don't care, but it gives your loved ones a good feeling to know that they followed your wishes that you had when you were alive, but it really doesn't matter. Once you leave the body really has no interest to you. Okay, that's what she's saying. And then the next question is, are we coming back? Yes, of course. Like I said a minute ago, you might not be coming back to Earth, but you have a myriad of choices, says Kyle. You can reincarnate into any kind of being, or you can choose a non-incarnation. So this is something I talk about when I'm speaking with a being of the light. I say, are you of the light or are you not of, sorry, not that. I do ask that, of course. I mean, I already know that. But I do, when I talk to these beings of light, I ask them if you're incarnate or not incarnate. So incarnate means they're in a body. It's like Alparbia, my blue avian friend that I trans-channel all the time. He is incarnate. That means he is in a blue avian body. He's not his big spirit, right? Now, Archangel Ariel, who I'll bring in later, is she incarnate? As an angel, she is incarnate as an angel, but it's sort of on the line of incarnate and not incarnate, because angels don't really have a form because they're such high dimensional beings, but that doesn't mean that they're not incarnate. Ariel's saying, yeah, she's incarnate as an angel. And when you're not incarnate, you're not. And she's saying there are angels who are not incarnate as well. There's just, it's a big question and it's a little bit complicated. That's your quick answer. So sometimes when you see these rays of light, that happens in my trans channel classes, that people get rays of light who are speaking to them. That's not an incarnate body. So, or just a light. Sometimes that's non-incarnate. And I don't know if it really makes a difference. They're always saying that for humans, we really like these categories. So they're giving them to us. Will we see our departed family? So yes, like I was saying before, that's usually what a spirit does. As soon as a person dies, they usually start looking at their family. So it is important to have these gatherings. It really does help the deceased and helps everyone also deal with it. She's showing me, my friend Michelle's showing me the memorial that I was there, and how it was really wonderful to see people she knows from different places and her family sitting together, eating pasta. And she's just saying it was really lovely and it was very healing for everyone. And so that's really important. And people usually like to stay and just see all their loved ones and make sure they're comforted before they go on. And yes, you can see them all the time. So like I said, I know Joanne pretty well. She's just joined as a member, but she's also in my Tag Lightworker group. And I've talked to her parents many times in sessions, and I just lost my train of thought. And that's one thing that I see is that they come around to see her. You know, they check in on her. And I see that with other clients whose parents I check in on, and they always ask at the end of the session, you know, if I have time to bring a message from their mom or dad or something. And I see them, that I can see it looks a certain way to me. Like it looks like they're coming in, they come in to check on you. And remember, they're outside of time. So it's, you know, they can check on you at any time. Does that make sense? So even sometimes when I reach out to speak to a being who's deceased, a person, and they're in some sort of schooling, they're kind of harder to reach sometimes. And sometimes I'll say, I can't come at this time, but here's a quick few messages. I'm doing well. I'm learning, and I'll visit as soon as I can. So even though they're outside of time, there is some sort of timing that does make a difference that I really can't explain. All right, Glow has lots of good questions. How can we better prepare ourselves and our children for dying? My teen and I talk about death quite a bit, so as to take the fear out of it. So that's so great, Glow. Yes, to take the fear out of it. I think understanding how death works and how this isn't your whole experience, but it is something that you've been given as a great gift. And my guides talk about this a lot, about looking at your life not as like, you know, something you have to kind of get through, and it's you know, it's heavy and it's hard, and oh, this thing's happening, but almost like a quest or something that you are it's almost like a mystery or a case you're going to solve. Like, how are you going to make this the best life out of what you've got here? You know, it's one of my guides is showing me, like, when you have nothing in the house and you want to make a meal and you're like, you know what could I make out of this tomato, these leftovers, and these mushrooms, this can of pasta, like, what could I make? And you make something amazing. You're like, oh, that was so good. I just made that up. It's kind of like that. You're like, you take what you're given and see what you can do with it and see what you can make out of it. And we really need to look at our life that way and understand that this is just an experience that we will pass on from at some time, and our life will open up from there, and we'll see and do so much. However, this is such a beautiful gift that we were given to experience, and we wanted to experience for a certain reason. And I think that that's where you'll hit the sweet spot between explaining that this is just a temporary life and not glorifying anything about, wanting to leave this life early. I think that when people do want to leave this life early, I don't think it's so much of a punishment, or, there's definitely no such thing as, well, we'll talk about hell in a minute, but it's really more about a missed opportunity. Is there a hell is a pretty common question. And I believe that the closest thing you're going to find to hell is the hell of your own making, your own choices coming back at you in this life, a law of attraction gone awry, right? Everything we're feeling inside is what we're bringing to ourselves with law of attraction. And so you pretty much experience probably the worst hell that there is here. Now, there are, sure, there are realms of some dark activity, but that's a whole other topic of where we could be trapped in there. But that is also a trapping of our own making, and you can always call on angels and a source to help you in any kind of situation like that to bring you out of it. So, is there a choice of heaven or hell once you die? No. The answer to that question is no. There's only what you make of it. Even the worst people here on earth are here for a reason, to show us duality, to show us dark things, and to be the negative to our positive, so that we do find positive, so that we do find light. We have to have the experience of what darkness is. And that doesn't mean that they are evil and they're going to this, horrible demonic realm of hell afterwards. That's not a thing that they're going to be experiencing, or that they have to experience after death. That is just, they're going to come out of their life and be like, "Ooh, I really played that role, right? I learned a lot." There are a lot of people here who have come to learn that. What would it be like to be that kind of, be in that darkness, to be cause of darkness, and we have past lives like that, where we learned how to be the dark, so that we knew how to recognize the dark in this life, so that we could be the light. So there's a lot to be learned from those types of lives, but it isn't quite a simple thing of going to hell, right? Thank you, April. It is interesting on the angels. Okay, so I'm loving your questions. Let's go through some more. Connie says, I have a friend who recently passed. I'm so sorry. Even though I understand the afterlife process, I still have so much anxiety. Watching her slowly pass from cancer was horrible. I'm sure it was horrible. And I've been through that as well. It's really hard to watch someone die a slow death. Now, we have to remember that everyone who has these horrible experiences in life, including our own traumas, these are traumas that we have set up for ourselves to experience, because we wanted to know how we would experience them, what we would go through to experience them, how it would work for us, and so that we would learn from it. And so there must have been something about her wanting to learn what it was like to go through that she chose for this life. And I don't know if that brings you comfort, but that's definitely part of it. And you say now, but I know she's better now and she's crossed into the light. That's right. And she's learned everything she can. And now, She may come visit you, maybe in dreams. If you have a dream about someone who's passed, that's definitely a visitation. And, she can be a real helper to you on the other side. April says, I have always understood that there was also employment on the other side, a choice, but something to do that feels meaningful and helpful. Is that true? So I have Archangel Ariel here, and she's saying yes, yes. She's saying actually yes. And most of us have been angels and other types of helpers. So angels is actually an employment incarnation, and it is their duty to help humans. And there are different kinds of angels or beings for different kinds of beings. Humanoids, aliens, or whatever, animals, or maybe fae, like everyone has these helpers. Angels are our helpers as humans, and there are other types of angels that help other types of humanoids. But yes, there is a choice for that. There's so many choices. That's what they're telling me. There's a lot of choices that we don't see. I see the schools. I see incarnating as angels or helpers or spirit guides. I see that sort of thing. But that's all I see. They're saying there's a lot more that you can actually do. Also, connect with our previously deceased loved ones and also we can connect with our previously deceased loved ones and animals, correct? Yes, you can see anyone. So that's another thing. You'll be able to travel and speak with anyone who's passed, who's living, or who has ever passed. You'll understand the connections and different incarnations. Like if you've had a pet that's incarnated as a pet again, a different pet, understanding those connections and incarnations, understanding your connections with your spirit guides and incarnations as them or with them, or there's so many connections there, and understanding all that. And of course, understanding like why things had to happen the way they did and how you learned. And I think it must be very interesting to see your lifeline and how, you came to this point because of this thing and where you learned this and this all the way back where that must be very fascinating to see in your life review, don't you think? You're so welcome. And April always says, April also says, I always equate that with actors who love to play villains because it is interesting to try to experience things outside of their usual personality. Yeah. Okay, Lauren wants me to talk about exit points. So there are exit points. They are, I think they're kind of like astrological, or they may be astrological. I don't know that much about astrology, so I can't really talk on that. But I do see that there are exit points that you can leave. So sometimes when people are sick and they stay a long time, they may not take an exit point and decide to take the next one for whatever reason. Maybe because they want people to be in a certain place when they leave. I've seen cases where they wanted one daughter to come to a certain place before she left, or I've seen where people held on for a long time because they wanted a certain time point to help their loved ones that they were leaving money to or leaving something to, or it's sort of exit points like that. But I've also seen people pass up their exit point because they suddenly felt like something happened and they were like, this is not a good time. I'm going to take the next one, but the next one wasn't for many, many months. So there's a lot about exit points. They aren't always close together. They can be far apart. So yes, you can choose your exit point, but I've seen people pass it up, like I said. So that's what I know about that. Connie says, I did have a dream with my friend that passed. She was looking at a holographic life review and talking to two blue glowing beings. She was saying she didn't want any more karmic relationships. I am sure that when we pass, we are like, oh, I'm so done with Earth. What about ascended masters? Did they exit their body naturally, or how does that happen? So ascended masters come to Earth sometimes, and then they can die just like anybody else, go back to their higher self. Even an ascended master is an incarnation that's not their higher self. So if you think about it, like let's take Jesus, Yeshua as an example, who is this embodiment of Christ light, which is a type of light coming from source, and has incarnated as different beings, most notably the one many people know about, Jesus, but also has had other incarnations as other types of beings as well, including angelic. and appears to us in his Jesus form for clarification and understanding that he's coming from an ascended master position, a being who has a lot of knowledge and has also had the human experience to explain that knowledge and to help us in this life. So that's kind of an explanation of that ascended master, but they can also exit their body differently. Who is it that's is it Babaji? Who is it that's sort of alive but not alive in the mountains somewhere? I have it wrong, whoever it is, but they can also exit their body differently for sure. Are there any more questions? I can bring in Archangel Ariel. I'll bring in Archangel Ariel for trance channel to tell us a little bit more and a healing. So let me write this real quick. Hold on. And if you have more questions, put them in. Let's see. April says, I did not know that humans and angels could cross incarnate. We've all been angels and different beings. I truly believe that. I say that a lot. Okay. Let's bring in Archangel Ariel for a message and healing. And then if you have another question, I'll ask. Okay. Hello, it is true that angels incarnate and non-incarnate. We can be both at the same time and not at the same time, for it is a type of incarnation that has no beginning or end or time component, difficult to explain in language, made for a 3D experience. We are sometimes a collection of souls. For many of you, experience life as an angel as well. It is part of the experiencing of the soul that is very helpful and beautiful for understanding life as you know it, understanding the cosmos, the universe, understanding the soul. I hope it pleases you to know that death is not painful, hard, or an ending of anything except for an experience. And there are many other experiences to have. And that the connections you make in this life, your family, your friends, are never gone from you. And in fact, you are incarnating with many of the same souls over and over many times. This is what you would call your soul family. And many of them are here as your actual family and friends in those that you love in this life. And there are others as well who are now filling roles such as your spirit guides and your helpers, and will fill a different role in a different incarnation and will surround you when you leave this life. It is very simple outside of a 3D body. With a thought, you may bring any other being towards you or to experience their light again and to speak with them. It is a boundaryless place because it is no difference between calling in, being there, speaking with. It is all one. You are all one with everyone. And it's as quick as a thought to be speaking with one again or experiencing their light or the feeling of them in your presence again. I'd like to give you all a healing that can help you with this understanding of death and its role in your life as a start of a new chapter. This is a chapter, or maybe I should say, this is a book filled with chapters of learning this life. And then when you pass from this life, you will start new books of chapters. This healing will help you reconcile programs and beliefs which aren't true with those that are, to teach you how to discern what is true for you and to help you with any fear that you may have of human death. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Archangel Ariel. Aw. Okay, Heather has a question. What about soul braids? How do a collective of souls decide to exit? Do they leave separately, if not integrated, or all together? So I'm not sure what soul braids are, but I do see this. I think this, let me know if this is the same thing, Heather. So what I see that Ariel shows me, she shows me like source and then like higher incarnations down to us. And they look like a cluster of grapes. And it's kind of like this cluster of grapes is our soul group, right? And this is like, these are like all the angels we know and all the ascended masters and beings and helpers. And then like all the people that we know or that are incarnating with us. It's almost like this huge soul thing. That's probably like a soul braid or what you're talking about. So I'm not exactly sure what your question is. How do a collective of souls decide to exit? When there's a collective souls, like, have you ever spoken to a collective of like a different type of being? Since some alien types speak with collectives, and there will be one who speaks for them all. Excuse me. And okay, here's a really good example. April likes my soul grapes. That was from Archangel Ariel. Here's a really good example of collectives. The collective of Abraham that is often talked to or about by Esther Hicks. So I've spoken with Abraham, and I've spoken with a great deal of Palladian beings who are in Abraham, and they say that they take turns. So the collective is not always the same beings, that they're different beings that make up the collective, and that they come in and out. And so I think that they're not incarnating or non-incarnating at the same time. But that's not your question. Okay. I'm referring to more than one soul in one body. Are you talking about walk-ins? So if you have a walk-in, then from what I mostly see, it's usually one soul in one body and the rest are spirit guides. But I'm asking, can there be more than one soul in one human body? And Ariel is saying not exactly like that, but you're talking about walk-ins. Okay. So, because you said yes. So with walk-ins, what I see is that, and I've spoken to walk-ins before, and I've diagnosed it for those who were coming for a session, is what I see is that so I had this case where a young boy who was sick, he was really sick, and when he was around 7 or 8, he left his body and a new soul came in. And so he died, he left his body, but his body went on with a new soul, and that soul was the walk-in. So if you're having more than one soul in a body, usually there's just room for one. So one has to go over the veil, pass through the veil. They have to die and leave that soul in there. So there might be a small time where they're kind of both there, and that would be really disjointed. But other ways that you might see a sort of like, for instance, what they're calling, and could be also, but like the sort of dissociative personality disorder, where you have a lot of personalities. Sometimes that person could have the personality disorder where they sort of fractured their personality into different ages, but many times they're channels, and they're channeling all their different spirit guides who are other parts of them. And so that can be super confusing too, but usually it's just one soul in the body. So You understand, and thank you for the clarification. Okay, you're welcome. Yes, so it can be like really confusing. There's all these different types of souls in the body, or where it can be confusing. And many times, if a psychic is unbalanced, or not fully grounded or not fully sane, then it can be really wild, all these personalities that they're channeling all the time. If they're not really rooted into the 3D correctly, there can be some problems there. And I think that's where you see a lot of mental instability, is sometimes has to do with just the whole 3D experience not being fully grounded into the body, or chemical imbalances or things that can really fracture that. And they also show me too that with Alzheimer's, that sometimes where time is becoming a little more fluid, because as we pass, then we're not inside time anymore. And that in itself can be really confusing for a person who's experiencing Alzheimer's, because they're less rooted in time. So they're kind of, it's almost like being alive and having a sort of regression life review, right? And they're just outside of time. Most of the time, it's very, very confusing. Can anyone suffer? Okay, here's a good question. Sweta says, can anyone suffering request for a walk-in? Yes, I'm sure that you can request for a walk-in, and a walk-in would swap with you. But it might be good to understand why you're suffering, and if there's something to learn from this life that you would regret not learning if you left. Lauren says, I've heard that just as we are only a piece of our higher soul, that we all also have another piece incarnate at the same time. Can you talk about that? Yes, that is true. So it's interesting. You can talk to someone's higher self while they're alive, and you can talk to them and experience this psychic swap of information, let's say, like as a psychic does, with someone who is alive, but you're only speaking to their higher self. And it is confusing. If someone has Alzheimer's or they're passing away, you can sometimes experience them fully into their spirit, as if they're dead, but they're still alive. And if someone has reincarnated somewhere else, you can still speak to their higher self or their spirit of the person they were in this life. So sometimes when I speak to someone who's passed away, they are incarnate somewhere else. One time, a woman came to me and she asked me to speak to her husband, and he showed up as an Arcturian being. And I was like, what's going on here? And it was because he was incarnate as an Arcturian being, and he wanted her to know that he was incarnate somewhere else. He had reincarnated, but we were also able to talk to his higher self and his soul. So yes, we're only a piece, and you can always talk or experience the higher self too. And also, again, there's no time. So if there's no time, then you're in all incarnations at once. And you're also in all timelines at once. And you're also in all, alternate timelines, or whatever you want to call it, alternate lives. All of that we're experiencing at once. The soul can do that, but our human minds cannot. And that's where it gets confusing. And that's like a whole other conversation. What I believe that dreams are us experiencing some of these other incarnations and other things that are teaching us something. But when we leave our body and we go into those places and then we come back to our body, then it gets fractured and it gets confusing, because that information doesn't align with how this brain and this 3D experience thinks. And so it comes back so disjointed. Have you ever had a dream and you're like, it made so much sense, but now while I'm talking about it, it's like, I can't even tell you what happened. It's like, and now I'm like forgetting, and it doesn't make sense anymore, but it made sense when I was there. I think that's part of it. April says, does anyone ever get to the other side and not be ready to deal with all the timeless, boundaryless stuff? I don't think so. And I have my expert panel here, my friends who have passed away. They say once you get to the other side, it's like a full remembering. It's like you had forgotten and now you remember everything. Has that actually ever happened to anyone here? I'd love to hear if this has ever happened to you. I one time had a tooth worked on it. I did the Twilight stuff. And at the time, I was really worried about a lot of things. That's when I was an opera singer. I had a lot of anxieties. I was having a lot of tooth work done. I really wanted to have a baby, which I did eventually. He's 14 now. And I remember that I had so many worries about things not working out for me. And of course, I knew you at the time, April. And what happened was in this Twilight experience, I came out of my body right in front, and I was awake. Twilight's like you're awake in your sleep, right? So I was awake. I came forward about maybe 2 feet in front of my face, and there was a clear boundary there. And I went through the clear boundary, and there were all my spirit guides. It was almost like they were sitting in chairs or something. And I sat with them, and they told me everything that would happen. They said, this is all the stuff is going to work out for you. You're going to have a baby. You're going to have a child. You're going to have a huge, experience of success in what you desire. And they told me everything. And I just remember being like this. I was so happy, like, oh my gosh, really? So things really are going to work out for me. They're not going to be horrible forever. And they were like, it's really going to work out. They showed me all this stuff. So amazing. And I just remember thinking, this is wonderful. This is going to change my life knowing this. This is terrific. And then I passed back through that boundary and came back into my body. And I was like, it was all gone. All I could remember was that I was like, this is such a relief. Thank you so much for telling me. So I just had to take it on faith that everything was going to be okay. And it eventually was. And I had to go through that change of being an opera singer and this job. So this work that I do now. They couldn't spoil it for me, but that feeling stayed with me. And so they're kind of saying it's like that, you cross back over, and this is my other friend. He's saying that I don't want to say his name, but he's saying that when it's like coming home. It's like it all comes back. It's like you suddenly remember everything. He says it's kind of like where you have a dream, and it's like you have a terrible dream, and you wake up and you're like, oh my gosh, oh thank goodness, it's just a dream. It's just a dream. It's almost like that. You come through and you're like, oh, everything is back in your brain again, or in whatever is your brain, and you're like, oh okay, I remember everything now. This is okay. So they're saying no, not really. April also says, during my mom's Alzheimer's, she would wake up and insist on a whole different life she was living and want us to help her with her issues there. Very consistent, and made her very anxious. That is wild. I have never heard that. See, she was probably crossing over to another dimension or another alternate reality. How interesting, April. I never heard that before. It's really neat. Thank you. And then Sveta says, hey, Rachel, I want to ask something about timelines. How can we tap into another timeline to learn something or get a solution, or do we simply merge with that timeline? There's a lot of work with timelines that we do. I have some videos on it. Mainly, we work with timelines in my TAG Lightworkers mentorship membership, which is a monthly membership on my site at soundwaveshill.com. And we work a lot with timelines there. However, I do have a few things on my YouTube page that can help. Most recently, I put out a meditation about Mintaka and a seat at the table, your Lightworker Mintaka work. And that is, it's not a timeline work per se. I'm trying to think, did I do a timeline? I think all the timeline meditations I've done so far are actually in TAG, but I do actually recommend that you do that Mintaka seat at the table meditation. That one prepares you for this life and can do some prep work for timelines. But yes, you can tap into another timeline to learn something. Yes, you can tap into other timelines and find a future you, or a you that does something that you don't know, and get that information. And you can merge with that timeline. You can merge into higher timelines. All of this is work that we definitely do, and TAG is part of the things that we do. And it's very, very possible. Yeah. And Lauren says, interesting. I heard that people who are bipolar are experiencing different dimensions. See, that could be true as well. I'll never forget this. My friend worked at a mental health institution, and we always talk about elementals. It's where I started, is with Fae and elementals. And he said he saw this guy, and there was an elf right next to him. You could see, you could see the Fae. This elf was right next to him. And then the guy ran up to him and said, there's an elf here. There's an elf here. Do you see the elf? Do you see the elf? And of course, everyone thought this guy was totally crazy. And he was actually like, yes, I do see the elf. And you just have to wonder if like people are having these psychic experiences, seeing through the veil, and are just gaslighted into thinking they're totally crazy. Well, I mean, because that's what people experience and think is the truth. They're not just telling them they're crazy when they know that they're not, but it feels like gaslighting. It's like gaslighting, right? And so I guess it's not actually gaslighting, but in a way, it feels that way, right? It's like when you're told it's only your imagination, or when you're told that everything you're experiencing is not true. It is a type of gaslighting, only it's not coming from a evil place. It's coming from a misunderstanding. But you can imagine how that can unseat your life and really plunge you into some real mental instability. So it's something I think about sometimes, right? Like how many people were just driven crazy because they didn't understand what was happening and everyone told them that it was not. I think it's an interesting subject. Anyway, I thank you all for coming. Thank you so much for all your interesting questions. And this was a really interesting topic. So thanks for coming. And I'll see you next week. Actually, I am going to be live again. And this time I'm going to be doing something I used to do all the time, but I haven't had time to do it lately, which is come on live with my cards, Elemental Magic and Manifestation, and give some card readings for those who show up. Of course, if you join my new YouTube memberships, you can see this. I just opened up some YouTube memberships like yesterday. There are a few different levels, and they just started a few dollars a month. They're between $2.99 and $9.99, and you can get early access to my new videos, members only polls and videos, and special extras. So if you want to support my channel and get those extra connections, you just click the join button under the video or on my page. And I'm so grateful for all of you. So I'm excited to share these spaces with you. And one of the things I will be doing in the $9.99 highest level is giving card readings for all that join until we hit the number 30. So under 30, everyone gets a card reading. Over 30, what I'll do instead is do a dedicated healing just for those in that membership level, because it'll be a lot more, it'll be a lot stronger when it's just for, a certain amount of people instead of thousands of people. When I make a video for healing and it's for thousands and thousands of people who are watching on my channel, then it's a little more diluted than a personal session or even a group session like this. So I want to do it one time next week like I used to, and give everyone who comes on a reading. I can do about 45 of them in an hour. So we'll see how many we get to. So I hope I'll see you all next week. And thank you all so much. Thanks for coming. And thanks for staying with me. I've been on for a whole hour, which is a long time for me, but it was an interesting subject. So thank you all for coming, and have a great day. Bye. Thank you for watching. I'm Rachel Chamness at soundwaveseal.com. I love to help lightworkers trans-channel messages, light, and healing in higher dimensions. If you haven't already, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, and follow on social media, and consider checking out my Tag Lightworkers monthly mentorship program.